Welcome, world, to Life, Love, and Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. I am Reverend Sandy Rogers, and as the creator of this historic event, it is my pleasure to welcome you. We come together to bring you this historic event. We have practitioners, holistic practitioners. We have medical doctors. We have spiritual individuals. This event is so lovingly dedicated to my mother, Mrs. Barbara Dean Brown. And my mother taught me like 40 plus years ago about the importance and the meaning behind herbs. And she would always say, we don't know what they putting in those pills, so you better not, get hooked on prescription drugs. And so we listened to Mom, but not all of us paid attention. My sister, bless her heart, was diagnosed recently thereafter with asthma, and she was prescribed prednisone, which is a very powerful steroid. And my sister actually got hooked on steroids, like someone out on the street kind of hooked, like on heroin or crack or something like that. And so my mom and my sister are both on the other side, living in the other dimension, but they're upholding me, and this is dedicated to their memory. So we don't want to come and make you change your mind about what you're doing. We just want to provide information to you, something different, so that you have options to choose from, so that you're not stuck. Because the environment that we now live in, the fast foods, the toxins in the air that we breathe and in the water that we drink, and the processed foods, and all of that is causing havoc on this precious body temple. So God created our bodies to heal themselves, but they can only heal themselves when they're fed and they're nourished and they're stress-free. And so the 60 or so or more experts that we have are bringing you this worldwide wellness movement in an attempt to share their testimonies and their information with you. So we have from age 14 on up. I don't even know what the oldest age is. I think 88 or something. So you see, that's a wide range of knowledge that we're bringing you. And so we hope that you come and that you get all the knowledge that you need to affect a positive change on your life, and share this with others. It's free, it's online, and so we're just so thankful that you decided to be a part of our listening community, the viewing community, and we certainly appreciate you for giving us your time of day and your energy and your efforts to being with us and to being a part of this historic event. We have pulled together people of color for you, by you, right? So we want to make sure that you understand that we too, melanated people with color, can enjoy, practice, and participate in some of these modalities that others have been doing for centuries, and that is pretty new to our community. So we talk about Qigong, we talk about meditation, yoga, spiritual work from a different perspective than religion. So we talk about the spirituality aspect. We talk about abuse in the families. We talk about all kinds of subjects because we know that in our communities there are layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff that we never talk about that's causing a negative effect on our bodies and its healing process. So we address it, whatever it is, and we hope that you will benefit from the many experts that we have, and that you walk away with lots of knowledge and lots of new information, and that you become fully empowered to share information with others. So thank you for being with us. We love you and we bless you, and we look forward to doing this again. But thanks for being here with the first one. We appreciate you.
Life, love, and wellness. Life, love, and wellness.
born in India, city Jodhpur. I did course of financial advisor at bachelor's, and did master's degree in economics. I am economist also. I am writing book on economics, Jain economics, and I am pharmacist also. I did course of pharmacy, and I did work for pharmacy for longer time. Then I find that something is wrong. People are dying and suffering from medication. So I did course of nature cure. Then I did practice along with the part time, sometime early morning, sometimes afternoon. But when my children are earning member, then I settle for the full time nature cure course. But I have got a full knowledge of pharmacy, so I read lot of literatures. We don't find any medicine which don't have any side effects.
Wow.
Even all supplements, they are made of all chemicals. Sometimes they call it herbal, but they are not herbal. They are made of chemicals, and it is like people. I used to say we used to go hospital. That we find that buy one get one. We go for to treat one disease, but we take two diseases one more. So we get buy one get free. And there is a research has been done. The people are dying. Mostly diabetes patient never die with the diabetes. Never we heard. We heard that he has been died with the kidneys. He failed kidneys. Doctors say failed kidneys due to diabetes, but actually diabetes not success, but failed with the kidney failed with the due to side effects of diabetes medication. That is the main problem. Then I turned into the nature cure. Now, when more than 30 years ago my son was earning member, so I totally, he said that you do free of charge this work to serve people. A lot of people are with the benefits with the nature cure, and urine therapy is one of the part. It is one of the best tool in nature cure. If anybody feels urine therapy pass, it will pass with the urine therapy. All will clear. In medication, they suppress with the all diseases. Sometimes we feel sometimes anesthesia. We give anesthesia, but where is urine therapy in nature care? It clears whole body, cleans whole body. So we are happy. People are so happy. Those but sometimes difficulty is that it is due to family pressure. People are using rush to hospital, and they are fed up. After 20 years, 30 years, they come to this stage. They come to me. But I used to suggest that why not they come to first ourselves. So it requires publicity. So I want to say all government, organizations, NGOs, all that in all medical colleges, one course they can add as nature cure. God has given us air, earth, sky, sun, and everything they are given us. So then why not we use it? We are not using it because it is free of charge. People are happy to spend more, but actually they are spending more, actually they are damaging their health actually. So this time in medical college it happened, so people maybe get at cheapest cost. Nature cure, it is cheapest and best remedy, and there is no side effect. And we are not to borrow from anywhere. It is flexible. Whenever we like, we can use it. Whenever we like, we can stop it. We can take it by air, at mall and train, at any urinals, at any places. It is one of the best remedy for all people. So people can be healthy. So, but government is thinking that they are not earning with this. So if we do pressure, then it may be one of the subject. We must leave it to the public. That this is one of the subject. Choose anyone, if you like or not like. Then it is there. Why should we restrain from that? We should not use nature cure because government is not earning. It is actually cycle of the pharmacy. They are lobby. People used to give me threatening. They upset me. They taught me like anything. They tried to me that I should not promote it. You will be killed. You will be that's done. But I don't care. I am doing my duty because my date is last date is fixed. No one can challenge me. No one can. I won't die. People will die. It will go to other. I won't die. I will die only on that when God wants. We cannot challenge God. God is one of the best. So God has given the urine. God has given the all nature cure. Why should we not? We are not. People are walking in the ground. Why people are not walking in the house? People walk because they get air, they get sunshine, they get water, they get everything. They are sky, everything.
Right.
So this is one of the best remedy. We both are, myself, my wife, we both are. We are engaged with more than 53 years, and we both are using. And we can say diseases are living outside our gate, not inside. They won't come if we apply urine. We can apply urine. We both are using, and we are happy.
Right.
We have had accident. We fell down. Gardening, throws are coming, bleeding are coming. It is cured within no scar. And this is I am age of running 75. Do you feel any scar, any grace? Do you feel like that I am aged? But I don't feel aged. People may feel I am aged because my classmates they are on the stick. They all are in the walker. But myself is I am looking not I am working as their son like stand. We both are. You can judge me. We both are. You can come if you wish.
Yeah. So you have been working with urine therapy for 45 years now. Wow.
We are more than 45 years. We are drinking, but we started clinic at our Jodhpur 45 years ago.
Okay.
Then started for limited hours along with the pharmacy shop. We have pharmacy shop, so we used to open pharmacy shop by 6 and close by 11. Then I drove it to 7. Started 6 to 7 nature cure.
Okay.
Then I increased my timings 6 to 8. When 6 to 9, then I opened pharmacy shop. Then more than 30 years my son is earning. Then I stopped close pharmacy shop, and I am doing this all over India.
Yes.
And since last 20 years we are living as a monkey. We are coming to our children. They are in the US. Grandchildren are reading in the UC Berkeley and UC Santa Cruz.
Okay.
So I have to come and go. Now I am a mobile doctor. So people call me sometimes Melo doctor, and sometimes they call Phono doctor, whatever they can call. Sometimes eternal teacher of urine therapy. They can call as they like.
Right.
I am fine with it. I want to promote it. All people are not happy. Hotel may be. If you open hotel, all people are not happy with this hotel. They may happy with other. Makes no difference. There are many therapists. It is open. It must be but they must have at least knowledge. People have knowledge that this hotel is best. This hotel is best. This hotel is best. They are rating. So why not government do rating which one is best? Because it is only the therapy which has no side effect
Right.
and permanent cure finally.
So, what are some of the illnesses or conditions that you have treated over the last 45 years with urine therapy?
Myself or you meant to say
Your patients?
Patient.
Mhm.
Patient, same thing. Myself and patient, both are restaurant from the we use. I used to suggest eat vegetarian food, eat rainbow color food, so we get all minerals and vitamins, and eat before sunset. Actually, in India, we used to say sunset. Actually, this is the term sunset, but this is not the thing, because sunset in India always 7
Okay.
sunset, but all over other countries it depends upon. So I used to suggest 7 to 7 you can drink. We can drink morning 7 and up to 7 p.m. So we can have a gap of 12 hours or 8 hours or whatever may be. So we can drink in the morning urine, that is the best. It contains 8 hours of contents, more content we get,
8 times more?
8 times more.
Wow, that's awesome.
If we pass every hour, quality will be less, but
The-
more hours, more quality.
Okay.
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 So, in the morning it is sometimes we can say target or sometimes smelly or sometimes whatever may be. But if we use without spicy food, for today we did not, we eat only fruits. So we get clear. In the morning we took urine. It was clear, both are clear. It was just like water. If we eat spicy food, it will be colored, something colored. But quality will not change. Quality will be the same,
Okay.
because it is one of the best remedy. There are no one can say, no one can challenge that it is the worst therapy. Those people will say worst therapy who have not taken it, because they don't like, they will say no, because this publicity in allopathy or doctors, it is a worst. How it is worst? When we are drinking, when we are alive, no side effect. We never went to hospital 45 years. Children they born before 45 years. So on that time they took only hospital medication before 45. When my children took place, my son is more.
You teach in everywhere you can because you want people to understand that urine therapy is the best.
It is one of the best. Huh?
Because
Yeah, I don't find any person can challenge this urine, not me, do urine therapy. No one can challenge.
yes,
Only, I said, challenge can only be done those who have not used it. Only that person. They will say, no, it's not good. But how we can promote it? It is the thing. I am ready to serve free of charge. I never took any money. I never took money from Anthony or any other. If you come, if you have a ticket from India to here, then I may come. I never
and
asked.
so when you
People used to give me something, and they give gift, then it is okay. And they give money, I used to suggest they give it to donate. So some people, poor people, not only poor people, nobody is in word poor. I mean to say those who are disabled, mentally retired, blind school, I used to suggest to give money to them.
right,
I used to carry them to promote it. Even my son donated it to some disabled school, mentally retired people. We used to support that one. We don't want to promote in a temple or everything. People want to go temple, it makes no difference. No, it makes no difference. Health is more important.
Yes.
Health is wealth.
yes,
That is most important.
right,
And the most thing, I cannot do this business without support of my wife. If she won't support, because she is companion, she always supported me in every respect, every path and come. She used to come, and we in India people used to call for camps in villages. We both used to go. So sometimes ladies don't want that talk about ladies' problem, so she can handle.
Okay.
She knows everything, and she is living with me. And we actually in India we are both are living, and the children are here and at Singapore. My daughter is at Singapore.
Okay.
Singapore.
Right.
And
right.
their children are they are where they are since
that's-
more than 20 years. They are more than 25 years here.
Yeah.
So,
That's beautiful that your wife helps out and assists.
otherwise,
you.
how can you support?
Right.
We will be tortured. Sometimes it's not good, it's not good, it's not good, it's not good. You have to do, you have to do this. You are not to go. You cannot go. If she won't like, I cannot come here.
Right. Right. And you've been married 53 years now. Yeah, that's awesome.
Including engagement.
You look like you're 53 instead of, instead of
My
being
son
married
is
53.
son is crossing 50.
So when people,
he has white hairs and
that's all right. People get white hair early sometimes. So you, when people come to you, what be wrong with them? Do they have like skin issues, or they have cancer, or they have high blood
mostly
pressure?
they have multiple diseases,
Multiple diseases.
and people don't ask doctors that they have this problem, because they depend upon only testing. If testing comes, you have BP, you have BP. I say, you don't have BP. Suppose we take thermometer and we keep thermometer every half an hour, every hour, we will find we have a fever one time.
Wow.
So suppose we take blood pressure every time, myself and anybody, every time you will take, sometime you will find blood pressure. It does not mean that we have blood pressure. So people, when they take blood pressure, oh, you have, because he tensed, she tensed, they tensed. So they come, it comes in the BP. If we are tensed, it will, if we relax,
Yes, yes.
there will be no BP. Once I suggested one, I don't know, Swiss, she was having a blood pressure. I said, this is a paper. If we throw it from the 30 stories, so it will be as it is. It won't harm. It will harm. What do you think so? Damaged? If we throw it,
From
this
30, you said from 30 stories, right?
it won't damage.
Okay.
It will be like this, as it is.
Right.
But if we throw this from, it will break.
Yes, yes.
So if we relax, so you will be no problem with any disease. Most of problem have with the tension. Then it will come into the diabetes. Then it will to heart. It is all people are scared, because when they visit doctors, they will say, "Oh, you came timely. Otherwise, you have been gone."
Oh wow. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
then they are scared. They will ask their spouse. They won't say to patient, if he or she won't take medicine, she or he will be disabled, paralyzed. So don't always give medication.
Yes.
So her or his spouse always say, no, you have to take medicine, otherwise you will be paralyzed, you will be paralyzed. We are scared.
Yes.
And I said, those persons who have been paralyzed, those who are using BP medication, those who are not medication and relaxed, they will know. It is one of the best therapy. Mostly people are mentally sick, all due to family pressure, doctors, oh, we must go for checkup. After we never went for checkup. Except for this, we went for citizenship, only medical checkup. Otherwise, in our life, we never go for checkup. Why should you go for checkup? When we don't have any problem, then why should you go here?
Exactly.
When we are not hungry, why should we eat? It does not mean when we don't want to go at any place. No, you have to go. You have to. When will be pushed, then it will harm. So we are taking medicine. We have become the slave of the medicines.
Yes. Yes.
So how can we save? It is my theme. How can we save them, patients, public, and it is awareness. So it is up to you, and publicity get requires.
Yes.
No need. No need and any. We can survive. What about when medication was invented? What was happened? People were happy.
Mm-hmm.
They were picking fruits from tree. They are eating. They are just enjoying without clothes, little clothes. No problem. As when medicines came, they are promoting that take medication, take medicine, take medicine. And they suggest some mammography. After you cross 40, you must do mammography. Those who have done mammography itself creates problem.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there is no problem. I suggested in the morning that those persons who are breastfeeding, I suggest
Yes,
morning.
breastfeeding.
Those persons stop breastfeeding. After stop, where milk goes, it will remain inside. That will create lump, cyst, or tumor. If you massage, it will no cure.
Massage, right.
Massage with urine, no problem. But they don't massage.
Yes.
For example, people have knee problem. Then they visit doctors. They said not to sit down, not to walk stairs. And I said, you stairs and you sit down, you will cure. So they said if they sit near in ground floor, floor, then they will be cured. Then who will come to them for knee surgery? So they suggest opposite. Not to walk stairs, not to sit down. They said it is their business. They have spent lot of time for what? To earn money. So I don't complain any doctor. It is we want it is awareness of public that they must know what is wrong, what is right. I think we don't get any publicity of that what I said this time, this thing. Nobody knows what is happen, what is going to happen.
Right. Will you explain the simplicity of urine therapy? Tell us how we do it for people that have never heard about it before. Can you tell us what it is and how to do it?
For newcomers, first take either one sip, either by spoon or by straw, and you can we can throw or we can spray while opening mouth. Some drops will come inside. Then they will feel. First, at least they must have faith. When they will faith, then they can start again. Then they can increase. And they can massage whole body. If they have a skin problem or other problem, they can use, at least they can use face, just applied on face myself. No smell. When I sit in the clinic, I used to apply before coming patient.
Okay.
They used to come by phone and give timings. One patient requires at least few hours, 1 hour, a half hour at least. It depends upon patient to patient. So before coming, I used to apply. And I say that, do you feel any smell? No smell. Because I used to come after application outside, I get fresh air, no problem. So faith is more important. Truth, faith and wisdom.
Okay. Okay, great.
That is the thing.
Great. And so then, and then you earlier you said to drink from 7 to 7.
They can rule, make their own rule. Suppose they have night shift, they can use, convert it.
Okay.
I mean to say when they are awake.
Okay. 12 hours when they're awake.
Right.
Okay. So if they urinate more, can they save it until the
After that, they can save for after 7 days they pass. They can save for the external use, and between 7 to 7, we can drink it.
Okay.
It depends upon. For a healthy person, one morning is sufficient for daily health.
Okay.
If we are sick, we can use it 3-4 times. That will be sufficient. And we are chronical sick, then we must use all 12 hours 7 to 7.
Okay.
And balance of for this one
Okay.
for external use. Yes.
So to introduce people to healthier ways of living, do you have a special message to give to people that are suffering because they're taking too many medicines, too many pills, or they have a health problem where they're scared to go to the doctor, but they need some help? Can you help those people? Can you give them some kind of advice as to what they should do?
First thing I said that they must have knowledge of it.
Knowledge.
So when they have knowledge, then they can think. Then they will decide either leave all medication, or they can start along with the medication and they reduce medication and increase quantity of urine daily. And finally within a month they can stop medication. They will feel that they feel better.
Okay.
And then they can use it forever.
So with the knowledge, they have
Knowledge, faith.
faith.
Yeah.
They can think and make a good decision, and as they increase their urine intake, they can decrease the medicine.
Decrease.
And within 30 days, it's possible for a person to come off of their medications.
They must be willing. They must be
Yes.
interested. The main problem is family problem. I said that doctors won't say anything to the patient. They will say to those who are either spouse or children. If your son, it is your father. Oh, if you want to take medicine, you have to rush to hospital daily. Yeah, how you will do your job? No. You must take medication. Otherwise, he will die. He will die. He will be damaged. He will be paralyzed. He will be woe. She will be woe. That is something they are scared with the doctors. That's why I suggested that in medical colleges they can add one more subject of nature cure along with the urine therapy.
Nature's cure.
Nature cure means all nature gives, and yoga, exercise, and they suggest exercise. But when we ask what type of exercise, only walking. Walking is not something. It's useless.
Well, that's the reason why we're doing this webinar, so that people are educated and they get the knowledge about other ways to live healthy lives, so that they can walk around.
And we want some senator, representative, democratic, and other, so they can have a bill. So in the health bill.
Yes. Yes. Sometimes the government changes those bills so that it may start off being healthy
Obama
and helpful.
was good. It is better than Trump. Obamacare, but it is more better than this therapy is more better than no requirement of Obamacare. It is more Obamacare. So we want some senator and representative who are in the Congress.
Indeed.
They can promote it.
Yes.
We want that.
Right.
Huh.
Right.
If they promote, once there will be discussion, and if they call me, I am ready to spend my money and time for Washington DC for that. I am ready.
Great.
I am ready.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
My children will make a ticket for this. They made this time also.
Yes, yes. Excellent, excellent. So we're so glad that you have this information and you're so willing to share it with everybody. So we applaud you. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
namaste.
Namaste.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
I'm William Safir, and Sandy introduced me as Imam William Safir. I've been blessed for years to have a deep concern on elevating the quality of life among human beings in general, but in particular on family life, because that's where the quality of life for us is formed. So that's been my focus. As the Creator would have it, I had a strong base that developed a real intense desire for change, in particular among the African American people, because growing up in a community that had a reputation, I guess, the best description, or had a perception of itself that was pretty much given not only by people who lived there in terms of how they looked at themselves, but how they were influenced by media, by society at large, by the institutional racism that was apparent back when I was a child, back in the 50s and the 60s. In Watts, California, the southern part of California, in the south central section of Los Angeles. That environment gave me this intense desire to see change, to see the quality of life elevated, and that has followed me from the early 60s when I was 12, 13 years old, all the way up till today.
Well, thank you for that. And how long in what you're doing, you said since you were a teenager, and so you spoke about where you came from. So during that time frame, did you institute any type of activities within your community to impact what you were feeling was the energy of the community?
Yes, as a matter of fact, not only did we live in that part of the world that had become the focal point for poverty, for oppression. It had shifted from back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, even in the 50s. It shifted from Harlem back on the East Coast. It had shifted to the West Coast out there to Watts, and so we became what exemplified in most people's minds and hearts were the lowest part of humanity. That's how we saw ourselves, and that's how people perceived our condition was. So it pressed upon my mind and heart so much as a youngster that I felt compelled to do something. I looked at the civic leaders. I didn't see any action taken, any effective action taking place. I looked at the civil rights leaders. I didn't see anything. I saw some movement maybe in the southern states, but nothing on the west coast, nothing in Watts. I saw some talk about education and how politics might impact our lives, but we didn't see any results of any of that. And that pressed upon me so much that I said we have to do something. So I started talking to members of my family, to some of my friends that I had grown up with, and we eventually formed an organization that became known as the Student Committee for Improvement in Watts. Still with no real sense of direction in terms of what to do, we just took our immediate environment and said, well, we can improve that. So we started picking up paper. We started cleaning lots. We started cleaning alleys. We started encouraging ourselves and our neighbors to keep the property up better. Eventually we got to a point where we were actually painting houses, helping people improve their homes and in the neighborhood. And so little by little, we actually began to take on every aspect of life that we could imagine, and finding some kind of way to direct our attention to it and commit to making it better.
So even as a young person, a preteen and a teenager, you saw a need in your community and you didn't let it overtake you. So it wasn't bigger than you. You knew that you could make a difference in. So I want the younger people particularly to get the message that if you see it, you can do something about it. If your intention is set.
Yes, and I think we were moved from a deep place within, just being disturbed, in our soul, and I think that just gave us the motivation, the inspiration, the drive to get up and try and do something. So we responded to that, and I think that's what young people need to hear. That when they feel something very deep inside of themselves, that they should yield to it and respond to it, because it's something that's going to improve their quality of life, and they never know what kind of impact they'll have on others around them. And that's what happened to us. We started off, it was just a handful, maybe half a dozen of us just started off, and at our height, 2 or 3 years later, we were between 200 and 300 strong, and we grew, and with that kind of support, not only from our peers but also from the community at large. And whereas some adults saw fit to look at us and try to convince some of us that the task that we set up to take was too big for us. We were too young and too inexperienced to not to yield to that. Mm-hmm. And we just started doing things, and the more we did, the more we saw that could be done, and we started growing. So I think that's the message, if anything that we could share with young people now, it would be that when you feel something strong inside of you, respond to it. And the guidance for what you need to do is inside of that. So all that you need to do, what needs to be done, is inside of you. All the guidance that you need in order to carry it out is also inside of you. So it's a matter of responding to that inner guidance system that all of us have. Again, young people have a tendency, especially when they're real young, when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, And then they really do it without thinking about it. As they started getting a little bit older into their teens, they started kind of doubting, and they started yielding to the naysayers, the soothsayers, whatever you call them, those people that make a habit of focusing on what can't be done as opposed to what can be done, and they start yielding to that more. But if we will just allow ourselves to be all that we are at any moment in our life, and just go there, yield to that strength that's in you, and respond to it, and you'll be surprised what you can accomplish in your life.
Excellent point. Excellent point. So you have coined a term called the excellence of humanity, and I believe that's what you're speaking about now. So can you tell us about what's your vision behind that term, the excellence of humanity?
Yes. If anything, that's this force that I've been referring to already. It's if you look at creation, you can look at. I like to point. There's talk about the birds and the bees. When we reach a certain age, and responsible parents have that conversation with their children about life and what's ahead of them, developing family and what have you. But if you look at the birds, the bees, you look at creation, you look at plants, animals, minerals, anywhere throughout creation, and you examine that life, it has in its very foundation, in its base, in its fundamental structure, it has in it a guidance system. It has a nature that defines what it is or what it was designed to do, and that's what I'm referring to when I talk about human excellence. It's what we are as creatures. We have demonstrated, by we I mean humanity, human beings. We have demonstrated that there's no other creature living. There's a lot of talk about Martians and creatures or beings from other parts of the universe, but we have no evidence of that. I mean, we talk about it, and it's good for stirring your imagination, your creativity. But from what we are actually have witnessed and evidence, we're it. In terms of in this creation, there's nothing greater than the human mind, the human spirit, the human soul, in terms of being able to take it, to make use of everything else in creation. We can make use, as powerful as the sun is, we can utilize the sun. The sun can't utilize us. As powerful as rain and wind and snow and water, we can utilize those things. We can utilize energy, but it can't utilize us. So there's something about this fundamental nature of the human being that's distinct, that's wonderful, that's powerful, and that is right in accord with the designer. Whatever you want to call that designer, if you want to call it God, if you want to call it creative, if you want to call it universe, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to call whatever it is that design, the human essence, did so in a very wonderful way, in a very magnificent way, and that's what I'm referring to as human excellence. And so if we will yield, what came to mind is this recent movie that's come out, Black Panther. And I saw it just a few days ago, and I couldn't help but think how these superpowers, these superhumans are put before us as entertainment and stir up our imagination. And many young people want to see themselves as these. Now, human excellence is something that defines us. It describes who we are, what our purpose is, what our natural expression is, what our natural growth pattern is all in that thing that I'm calling human excellence. It's the intent of the Creator that created us, that gave us a particular design and a pattern for living, a pattern for even being. That's what I'm talking about. And this intelligence that designed this whole universe, when it got to the highest part of the universe, the human being, the human nature, when this very all-wise force, this power, designed us, I'm sure it didn't make a mistake. And that's the false notion that's been perpetuated from the beginning of time, that somehow this all-wise Creator made a mistake when the Creator got to create this human being and created something that could not follow its own excellent nature. And I don't buy that. You know, the whole notion of us being born in sin, which means that we are born to go against our nature. To me, that doesn't, something's wrong with that concept. And so that's why I always like to go back. Now, if I can control you and let you think that there's something wrong with you, that you are a mistake, that you are a mishap, that I design you to be one thing, but you're anything and everything but that. And so you're just a disappointment to me. I'm your Creator, but you're a disappointment to me. You know, if I can get you to buy that, you know, then you will never be able to rise to your true potential. But I'm doing it. I'm becoming richer and richer and richer, and you're being stuck becoming poor and poor and poor because you're not in touch with this thing I'm calling human excellence. So that's so important for us to be able to identify that, to be able to yield to that, to be able to honor that, to be able to build on that. We have an obligation to, and I think our own soul obligates us to acknowledge the best that's in us. And no matter what anybody else says, that we should honor and trust the best that's in us. And as we show this trust, another word for trust is faith now. So not only do we have this trust and faith in the Creator who created us, but in ourselves. And if we show this trust for what's in us, if we trust it, then it will open itself to us, and it will reveal itself to us, and it will serve as guidance for us from within ourselves. So we don't have to go to somebody else, be it Hollywood, what we've known as the world. It'll be thinking outside of the box. Outside of the box because we're not conditioned to trust ourselves. We're conditioned to only trust what somebody else is, the expert over there. That doesn't look like us most of the time. That doesn't think like us most of the time. To trust that, not yourself. But the way we were able to get some traction back in Watts in the early 60s, with the Student Committee for Improvement in Watts, a bunch of kids was able to make some serious moves. And in the most neglected part of the world, Watts, California, we were able to not only begin to, and within a matter of months and a few years, not only were we beginning to turn the tide in terms of us acknowledging and respecting ourselves and our own self-worth, we're beginning to stir even some of the adult members of our community, the residents, the political leaders, the religious leaders. They have to think another time about the possibilities coming up out of this neglected part of the world. Why? Because we, without knowing, we were guided to begin to trust ourselves, our own intuition, our own inclination, our own human excellence. And as we began to respond to that, we were able to get support and start moving in a direction that was coming up on of our own intellect, our own imagination, our own drive. And that's success.
Love and wellness. Life, love, and wellness.
Today we have the awesome pleasure of having an interview with Deborah Rouser. She is a registered nurse and she is so passionate about how she assists people in the universe. So I'm going to have Deborah to introduce herself to us.
Well, I'm just me. I'm an authentic person. Always have been a little different, even to the point of people are like, well, Deborah, you're really a rebel rouser. And, folks have told me that for a long time, from family-wise to even working in corporate America in the medical profession. And I've been on this journey in terms of health since 1976, when I graduated from Hampton in nursing school. And the story about that was that my mom's, when I went off to college, and I wanted to be a psychology major, and she said, oh no. And if anybody has met my mother, that I so lovingly call HB, she said, you're not going to mess up my money in psychology. You better go and do something that you're going to be able to get you a job. So of course at that same day, I changed it to nursing. And it's interesting because I just realized about 2 or 3 years ago that nursing has not been my passion. It has been something that I've done because I took heed from Mommy Dearest. And it's been good though for me, because with nursing as a background, it allows me to do a lot of other things in the health profession. Now, the other piece to that story is that when I graduated from Hampton, I said to my folks that came in 1976, I really wanted to go to medical school. And I knew at that time I wanted to be a surgeon. And I wanted to be a surgeon on the GI system. Now, that is so ironic, because full speed ahead now, as we look at my story in terms of my training, I ended up getting involved and getting introduced to colon health, which is really one of my passions, because everything begins in the core, in the colon. And when you study even iridology, you can see the stomach and that first ring, and then around that is the rest of the digestive system. So as we live our lives, we're even affected emotionally in our core. So the story of my being a surgeon and really working with the digestive system, I said to my folks that that's what I wanted to be. And my grandmother, who's passed on, said, well, why didn't you let us know? And I said, well, I didn't think you all would be able to afford it. But I knew that would have taken me to a different path. Even being introduced to becoming, going to the Air Force. that was something that I was interested in and had been courted by the Air Force and knew that I would go in as an officer. So I've taken a different path. My passion is being well and transforming people. The first email that I had was, "You too can transform." That was my first email. And I've worked with assisting others to transform as I transform myself. And whatever we're good at can be also our weakness. And we can learn to become even better at it. We can learn to expose ourselves as a weakness of it. And even the gentleman that I've studied under, Bernard Jensen is his name, and he's well known across the globe in reference to the iridology. And one of the things that he did was to plot the reflex points on the colon, which is very powerful, because what that says now is that there can be blockages within the colon that can affect other parts of the body, just like on the eyes, just like on the spine, just like in the hands, and just like in the feet. And it's, you know, it's so magnificent how the creative intelligence and the shining ones have gotten our bodies together and said, okay, here's the framework and the network, and this is what this means, and this is what this means. It's our learning what it means and then working the principles of that. So the passion of transforming, and I even did a radio show for a while called Transformations, Health Transformations, on WRFG, and did that for a while. I even have some of the tapes from where I did the shows and had people that would come and talk about health. But it really got me cued into how to communicate health to others. And the flip side of that is how to communicate health to myself. And each client that I've had over the years and years, since 1984, 85, if you will, of teaching people about colon health, I've learned so much. You know, one really powerful piece was a gentleman that came to me for some colon health hygiene series. And while he was on the table, I said to him, "So, have you been snorting cocaine?" And his eyes popped. And he said, "Yes. That's one of the pieces, my addictions." I don't even know if he's still alive now. But helping people with their colon opens me up to get a better understanding of what's happening with them. It's almost like a tarot reading, if you will, you know, or a numbers reading, if you will, because of that connection, even as far back as my graduating from college and knowing at that time that I had an affinity for the GI system. So that has been a really powerful experience for me. And even being able to look at the energy that's coming from the colon and say, okay, you've got a blockage here, a blockage there, or feeling it and being able to tell. Very, very powerful. And it's not magic, it's just a gift that has been bestowed upon me from the shining ones. And understanding and overstanding that has taught me a whole lot. I think about, and the more I learn about the colon, I find out that there's more to learn. Because the colon in and of itself has a brain. You know, some people call the colon the third brain. And there's a brain on the brain of the colon. That's the cecum, you know, and I've talked about that somewhat, because the cecum is the blind spot that connects the small and the large intestines and is separated by the ileocecal valve. And off of that cecum is the appendix. And we know that when the appendix becomes problematic, then that can become a life-threatening situation. You know, now when we back up anatomically, we know that the digestive system is 31 feet. And of that 31 feet, 5 feet is the colon. And the colon is basically responsible for just letting go of stuff that you don't need. Now that's very powerful, because if you move it to the whole idea, well, you're eating 3 meals a day and you may go twice a week. Now you're holding on to the residue of the food that you've eaten. Now it's at 98.6 degrees. And we can imagine what it's like, you know, and that's one of the reasons why when people go to the restroom, you know, nobody wants to go in behind them. And that's one of the reasons why deodorizers are very, very important, and they sell, I'm sure, millions of dollars, let alone looking at the billions of dollars that are sold for people who suffer from constipation. And even when you look at that root word, constipation, it comes from a Latin word that means to stick together. It's actually a verb, constipare, and it means to stick together. So on one spectrum, there's a person that may go twice a week, and we can imagine what that's about. Then there may be a person that's going 2 or 3 times a day, but the character of the removal of the fecal material is sticking together, and then it sinks. So that's also a degree of constipation. And I think it's very important to understand that. So if you're having bowel movements that are actually sinking, they're dark in color, that lets you know you have a degree of constipation. And let me just speak to vegetarians for a minute, because I think vegetarians really think they she and he foo-foo. You understand? Because, well, you know, I only eat plant-based foods. But some of the things that are eaten cause a lot of constipation. For example, gluten. You know, wheat can be very irritating for the bowels as well. So we have to begin to learn about the digestive system, the colon in particular, and that means what it is we put inside. Now, if we look at food and it's just sitting there and it's not movable, if it is not movable, that's going to be an indication that you're going to eventually have some problems, because that food is not movable. So the majority of your foods should be very movable. What that means is if you just touch it with the fork, then it can move. Like your vegetables, I like to call them vegetables, or like your salads. Those are going to be things that will be much, much, much better for your colon health and your colon care. So we want to look at that piece as an important piece to bring into our lifestyles. I think about things like lettuce. And they're all different kinds of lettuces. I mean, very delectable lettuces. But they're very good because what they help to do is to scrub the colon, scrub the digestive system. So whatever is sitting there moves along. Whereas those foods that don't move, for example, your heavy meat substances, your steaks, you know, your pork, not only because it may be an issue with people that have certain religious beliefs, but because it doesn't move very well through the digestive system. So it has a tendency to sit there. And what I would encourage the listeners to do is to get some raw carrots, grate them up, and eat your big bowl of grated raw carrots that have not been cooked. Put a little olive oil on them, and then put a little cayenne pepper. And then you watch to see when those carrots show up on the other end. That'll give you a good indication in terms of what your transit time is. And the transit time tells you how long it takes for something to come out that you've taken in. And if your transit time is long, if it's taking more than 24 hours for something to come out, then you can bet your sweet bippy that you're suffering from constipation, and over a length of time, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Particularly if you're not following some of the 6 essentials of colon health care that I speak about. The carrots are seen as a roughage food substance. And if you are not putting water into the system, a second element, then you can bet your sweet bippy that you will have some problems eventually. And because of those reflex points, certain areas will begin to be affected, whether it's the liver, your blood sugar, your thinking, your feet, your heart, your lungs. And I want to give a really powerful example as well. I remember working over at a hospital, local hospital here in Atlanta, and I worked on a cardiology floor. It was a telemetry floor. And one of the standing orders was to make sure that people had something medication-wise that would keep them from getting constipated. And typically, we would give them something if, they said, well, I'm a little constipated. Well, I remember this one lady, and it just proved a point from me, and then I observed it over my lifespan of nursing. And she was having some really funky kinds of arrhythmias that were coming from her heart from a telemetry reading. And she was complaining of her tummy not feeling well. Well, ended up giving her something for constipation a couple of days in a row, and those rhythms converted. Now, granted, the medication she was on would probably help, like digoxin, etc. But midway point of the of the descending and ascending colon is a reflex point that corresponds to the heart. So she, in essence, was able to go to the restroom and empty more than what she had been emptying. And when I questioned her, and this has been years and years ago, she said, well, I haven't been able to go to the bathroom. So that let me know certain things also. So even keeping yourself from getting constipated can even help with maybe heart conditions. That's just a question now. Maybe if you're suffering from AFib, atrial fibrillation, where the heart is just quivering and it's not beating the way that it really should beat. So we have to take these kinds of things into consideration. And, I'm not going to doctors, but most of them don't really have a conversation with you about your bowel habits. The generic question is, are you constipated? Well, you gotta qualify and quantify that. Because that's just like, you telling a person, well, do you drink water? And they saying, yeah, I drink water. Well, you haven't asked them how much. It may be they drink a cup a day. So, this is a relative thing, y'all. We got to really get that. And not even looking at halitosis and how people's breath can smell. That's from the digestive system, where putrefaction of the foods that you've eaten and you're constipated is backing up. So now your breath smells. And just a little sidekick, you can get you some cinnamon sticks and chew on them, which can be very helpful. Some fresh peppermint can be helpful. But cleaning out that colon is most helpful.
Today we have with us Mr. Reggie Smith. Reggie's life story, it tells about the saga of a man who has defeated so many death-defying moments, and still he rise. And that is the name of his organization, his multimedia publication, and the work that he does, Rise for War. And he'll explain what that means to you in just a moment. And so what I know to be true about this universe is that our tests are not for us, but it's for the work that we'll do with other people, so that when we become victorious, we are a shining example of what triumph looks like over these little nuances that we experience, that we each get to experience in life. So with that being said, and he is such a wonderful, dear friend of mine, so I present to you, world, Mr. Reggie Smith. Reggie, would you introduce yourself?
You really done a job that I couldn't do. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you, Sandy, and all the work that you do. So it's a joy to be around you, and thank you for having me. My name is Reggie Smith. I am from the south side of Jamaica, Queens. I am a father, a grandfather, and of course a child of God, from a family of 4. I was raised by a mother and a father who worked. We came from a middle class family in a relatively low income neighborhood. Of course, the south side of Jamaica, Queens, back in the 50s and the 60s was working blue collar neighborhood, but it was also filled with a lot of black folks. And so, it came with the trauma that is part of our community, and was just for me something that was even more enhanced by the social events of the day. In the 60s, we had the civil rights, as well as we had to fight for so many other things, just to have some modicum of happiness in our lives. There was a lot going on outside. There was a lot of assassinations of our leaders. Malcolm, Martin, the Kennedys. It was a traumatic time, but it was a good time too. So I found myself wanting and needing to escape reality, and always had a sense of trying to find God. Didn't know exactly where he was, but somehow I felt like there was a need for some peace of mind. There was so much going on outside that my mind was always thinking. I was a pretty intelligent young man. As a matter of fact, got skipped in the 2nd grade. They thought that I was kind of, precocious or just a bad kid. But no, I was angry because I didn't want to come back here. I remember from my past life, I remember drowning. And I remember coming back and telling God on the way back that I didn't want to come back. And so found myself back here on the planet. And I always tell the story saying, I remember the doctor smacking me on the ass. And I said, man, you didn't have to do that. I was going to cry anyway. But, I've come to understand that we are all here for a reason. So I'm grateful to be here. But it is quite a journey. And so there was lots going on, not only outside in the world, but at home. My father was a police officer. My mother was a hairdresser. My father was a police officer, and so that in and of itself, a black cop in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, had even more stress. And so, he dealt with his stress by drinking, and so that caused some issues in the household, especially when there's a gun and there's drinking. It's not a good mix. So there was trauma in the house, outside the house. I escaped through sports, which I excelled at and probably could have played professional sports, but I fell into somewhere along the line around about, I graduated high school at 16, so I fell into a trap of once getting into college and getting my heart broken by a young lady. And all my friends had been doing hard drugs, heroin, methadone, all types of drugs from middle school and on. But I kind of escaped that through sports until I went to college. Even prior to that, I had been smoking plenty of weed, but I hadn't progressed to the hard drugs. because people don't really pay attention, but my first drug was cigarettes. Nicotine was the first thing that took my willpower, because even then we knew smoking was not good for your health, and I wanted to be an athlete, but smoked anyway. And so once you start giving up your power with anything, then it's a downhill slide. There's a level of discipline that I think that we need as human beings, or to be able to find some kind of balance. And I started losing that balance when I started smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, and then ultimately I surrendered to the pain, emotional pain of all that was going on. And I don't know what kind of show this is, if it's PG or not, but to be quite frank with you, when I started saying these two words is when it really took a dive. I got my feelings hurt by a young lady, and I said, fuck it. And once I started saying that and started getting more comfortable with it, it made it easier for me to start using drugs and alcohol as a way to, escape, and sex as well. And I thought that it was, back then, I've come to understand now that it wasn't only an escape, but it was an opportunity. It was a way for me to try to find God, to try to still my mind, because come to find out that my mind can be my best friend or my worst enemy, and it's my best friend when it leads me to the light and sound within, but it's my worst enemy when it's all the time chattering and keeping me distracted from the actual journey that we come here for, that I've come here for, which is to find that spirit and that God within, and to let that light shine out in the world. So I didn't know that, but it felt pretty good when I was getting high, until it didn't, because that path to enlightenment is an expensive path, come to find out, in the physical world. And so it costs me a number of things over time. Not the least of which was my mental health, my spiritual connection, and because of the guilt and the all of the things that one does in order to physically maintain drug habits, causes shame and guilt, and I was lucky it didn't cost me any time, as it were, in terms of jail or prison or anything like that, because the ends of addictions, I've come to understand, are jails, institutions, and death. And so I was able to escape those things. But I had to pay a price of the diseases that I contracted as a result, because I was an IV drug user after I got clean in 1985 through God's grace. The pain just was overwhelming, and it was either die, kill myself, or something else. And I didn't even know what that something was, but it ended up being surrender. And I surrendered to try to get some help. And when I reached out for help was there. And I was able to find out about 12-step programs, and so I got stopped using one day at a time in 1985, January 29th, that is. It was a cold day, snowy day. But since then, I've learned a lot about myself. I've deepened my connection with a power of my understanding, my higher power. And I think that I've been more of a productive member of society, been able to develop a family and a sense of self and a connection with spirit. And so I was getting back to just the connection with spirit without the use of drugs has come through trying to take care of myself. I contracted as a result. It took me a few years before I found out after being clean. I was engaged with a young lady who has since become my wife, and I got pregnant. And we did at the time, IV drug users, people who were having homosexual sex were supposedly the people who were contracting HIV and AIDS and dying in a grotesque manner. And so, really didn't give too much thought to it. That couldn't happen to me, even though I had been shooting dope. No, it couldn't happen to me. But I had to find out once we got pregnant. As I'm glad my wife and my son, their test came back negative, but mine didn't. Mine came back positive, and it actually came back positive as what is understood to be full-blown AIDS, which is simply a designation. It's a mindset. Actually, it's a biological marker for a person who has the virus or retrovirus present in your blood system, and also your T cells, which are the measure of your white blood cells, that your fighter cells, are less than 200, and they're supposed to be within the range of 750 to 1500, somewhere there. So my immune system was compromised, and when a person's immune system is compromised to that extent, and with the knowledge that we had at the time, people that were having full-blown AIDS were perishing quickly and dying from a number of diseases, not from the retrovirus itself, but from opportunistic infections, because our immune systems had been compromised. But more importantly, in a lot of instances, what I found was that our mental state and that our emotional state was affecting our immune systems as well. And so the fear of the acknowledgement of full-blown AIDS, the designation of full-blown AIDS, was scaring people to death. Even the when people were getting tested, the idea was, the intention was at the time that it was your life expectancy was about 6 months. You should get your personal affairs in order because you're going to die. And a lot of people would die in 5 months, or would give up and do things, to just, self-destruct over a shorter period of time, because they were afraid of what we had seen, which was grotesque ways that people were dying, just wasting away. There's a lot of suffering that was going on, and so there was a lot of fear. And the biggest thing to do was to try to fight that fear. And thank God that I had been involved in 12-step programs and had a network of love around me and a family that loved me, because I was able to, through a lot of trial and tribulation, tap into that love. It's not the easiest thing to do, but we were able to do it, and love and perseverance and a change of lifestyle, because I became aware of the things that were affecting our lifestyle around us. Part of the struggle with the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and just becoming more aware of what was killing our community and killing people around me. But before HIV, in terms of diabetes, heart disease, and all the things, it just didn't make sense to me that they were disproportionately affecting the African American community. And so I was like, what are the commonalities? What connects us all? And it's the food, the air, and the water. And those things in my community, and all around me, were not up to par, and it was some of it was things that we could change, and some not, So I set out to try to mitigate the damage for myself, because I wondered about I had a son that was coming. I'm kind of nosy. I'd like to see how he was going to grow up and be. I already had one son, but I wanted to see how that was going to turn out. So I stopped smoking cigarettes, which was probably the hardest. That was harder than heroin to kick. Then I stopped eating meat. I changed the way that I ate. I started living a vegan lifestyle. I started practicing meditation regularly, exercising, and spreading love, and being as positive a person as I possibly could be, and trying to fight the fear of death, and enjoy life a day at a time. And so I got that insurance money, and we started traveling, seeing the world, I was able to stick around and see my son, and then, still watching people perish, and changing my lifestyle. And this was before medication, so there wasn't like we could fall back on the medications, so herbs, and different things were available, and so I used what was available. and stayed as positive as possible. And the years started going by, and through God's grace, my wife and I, we're still together. We were still together, and she's the most amazing woman, because at the time, to be engaged or living with or even having sex with someone that you knew was HIV positive was a very courageous thing to do. And so I thank her. Thank you very much, because the fear of I think one of the greater fears of an HIV positive person, with all of the hysteria that was going around, was that we were not going to be loved. And with the stigma that was being shown by a lot of folks, that was not an unrealistic thing to think about. Some people were deprived of love, and and many of them are not here now as a result. And so I'd like to say that Love Healed Me got more of a manifestation of that in 2005, when after the stress, I had actually not talked about publicly what I was going through, and I was compelled to do so by the spirit within at that point, because I had survived and thrived. Even though I was talking about love and talking about the changing of lifestyles, it didn't seem like people were really understanding what I was saying. And so I felt the need, and I was compelled to be more direct about my experience. And my wife was not ready for that. She was in the church, and she was in the choir, and she had a business, and the stigma was going to cause a problem. And come to find out that there were issues that we hadn't even really dealt with between us, because we were able to kind of bury it and just live a day at a time, which was, it was functional, it worked. But we actually did need to deal with those things, and I needed to speak about it. So it looked like we weren't going to make it. And I felt like I loved her enough to have to let her go, but I appreciated all that she had shared. But the idea of not being with her caused me the stress. And the stress made me sick. And I got, to a point where I was 116 pounds, and it wasn't good. Actually, they told my family that if I lived another 3 days, that it would be a miracle. But that was in 2005. And once again, that was an opportunity really for all of the love that we had shared with so many people over the course of years to be returned tenfold, 100-fold. And that love and the practice of the things that we had learned during the course of the time, or spiritual, in terms of energy medicine. I had loved ones and friends who came and used crystals and used, and I can't think of the science right now because I'm a little cloudy, but there's different types of energy medicine and love, and they moved mountains. And unfortunately, some of those folks are no longer with. People that prayed for me are no longer with us. But through God's grace, here we are, some 15 years later than that. So it's been, I contracted the virus, and I also contracted hepatitis C from IV drug use. So it's been over 33 years now, 34 years that I've been living with. Well, actually, I'm not living with hepatitis C anymore because they came up with a medication that has eradicated that. But they weren't even worried about the hepatitis C when they diagnosed the HIV, because they said that was a long acting disease, and it would be a long time before I'd be dead and gone before that ever was a concern. But they were, and I'm grateful. So it has been a long time. There's been a lot of emotional and mental effects that one has to mitigate and navigate over the course of life. I'm really grateful for having a 12-step program to refer to, and a network of people that I can identify with, especially men, because there are groups of men that I'm connected with that are just phenomenal. They're all on the same path of life, and we've all had similar or common experiences with drugs and alcohol, but the trauma is really what's at the core of our experience here on the planet this time, and it really is something phenomenal to see that how the therapeutic value of people trying to heal themselves, sharing their stories, is invaluable. And having understood that, something that I want the world to share. And I think that we all are recovering from something. And so, it's, it's hard for people to sometimes get beyond ego and whatever it is that keeps us from surrendering to that fact. It's not an idea, it's actually a fact. But, whoever we can touch, and I think that was part and is part of the frustration as well. I really had to learn to accept that we are not going to heal everyone. That, I remember when I was in TC, a therapeutic community, trying to heal from drugs, and they had me. I was young, and they sensed that I wanted to help people. So they used to have me stand up before I said anything in an open forum and say that my name is Dr. Reggie and I'm here to heal all of you, which was an indication that, I just really want to help folks get beyond things. But I had to learn that you can't help anyone until you help yourself, and that the best assistance that I could provide is to be an example. And so we do the best that we can, and I don't beat myself up when I'm not perfect. None of us are, I don't think. Jesus, is that you? No, but we do the best that we can. And so every opportunity, I've had the opportunity to write a book about some of the things. And then the whole inspiration of Rise for War is just that. It's resurrecting inspirational spiritual experiences for wellness, awareness, and recovery. And after a lot of reflection, that seemed to be the baseline of the experience. Is resurrecting inspirational spiritual experiences is us telling our stories, because we all have a story, and we're all the stars of our own story. And we're all here to give and share something, but when we don't do that, I think that we are not as connected to the whole. And the more that I connect and the more that we connect to the whole, the more we put all of our pieces together, the sooner we'll reach critical mass and shift the paradigm, which I believe we're close to. I think we're getting pretty close, but I always feel that way, and I always want to stick around until it happens and beyond. So, it's the body and mind don't know what the situation is; they only know what the response is. My understanding is that we are energetic beings having a human experience, and so that there are the chakra system is connected energetically to our endocrine system. And so just like our endocrine system are the glands that create the hormones and the parasympathetic responses that allow us to function on the planet. And so those chakra systems are connected to sound and light. And there's, I'm told, 7 levels of energy surrounding us. And so fear is an invader that pierces through the sound and the light and those energies, and so the thymus, which is the 4th chakra, is where our T cells are generated. It's all a disruption, and so all of the fear that's being generated out in the world now, in terms of the media, the things that are happening in the world with all of the wars and the killing, the things that Black people have had to experience and continue to experience on the planet, are all reasons to be afraid. But if we become more aware, of those things, then maybe we can mitigate it, to the best of our best extent. And so meditation, prayer, and a number of different other things, and that's where the wellness, awareness, and recovery. So I believe we're all recovering from something that when we're aware, then we can deal more effectively. And without our wellness, you know, and our immune system being our last line of defense because ideas, when they talk about winning the hearts and minds of men, you know, and I would like to say that, you know, probably governments, religions, there are a number of different things that are trying to move masses and move people in a particular direction. The commercials, everything's trying to move us in a particular way. You know, I think that we have to find some kind of core and center to work from and to try to embolden that light within so that we can do the best that we can on this planet, because life is, you know, life is life. And, you know, I'd like to be here because I'm kind of nosy. I like to see. I plan to be here until I'm 200.
200.
200, yeah.
Excellent,
200,
excellent.
You know, I don't know.
I'll see you half the way anyway. No.
I would tell
Just
people,
teasing.
you know, the hardest part about being 200 is watching all your loved ones and friends pass away.
That's true. That's true. Well, Reggie, you're such a delight. You're filled with so much energy and love and wisdom and understanding, knowledge, and your positive approach to life has made such a huge impact on what it is that you contribute to the rest of us. So with a deep heart full of appreciation to you, thank you. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much, Sammy.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
Hi everyone, I'm Marlo Oliver. I live in Marietta, Georgia, and I am a practicing massage therapist, Reiki practitioner, meditation facilitator, and my objective is to support people in their emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. So, in a nutshell, that's who I am.
So with your objective of assisting others in their well-being, you come today to tell a story that supports your own well-being. And so without further ado, would you please share this timely message with the audience?
Sure. So, I'm here today to share about how I was misled as a child about who my parents were. And how that came about is that my mother, when she became pregnant with me, she was not married. That was in the late 60s. From what I understand, it was not a popular thing to have done back then. And for some reason that I'm actually still attempting to understand, my mother's parents decided that they would become my guardian and tell the world that I was their child. So I was born believing that, or at least I was raised believing that my grandparents were my parents, my mother was my sister, my aunts were my sisters, and that my uncle was my brother. And, you know, as a child, that was fine because that was just my reality. That's what I knew. But at some point, around the age of 6 or so, I was informed that that was not the case. And it was rather unceremonious. It's not like anybody sat down and, you know, said, well, you know, this is actually the situation and this is why we did it. What happened was my sister mother was about to get married to my brother-in-law stepdaddy. So things were going to change. And the intention was evidently for me to leave my grandparents' house because they raised me. So to leave my grandparents' house and to go live with my mother and my stepfather. So in order for that to happen, I guess somebody decided it was time to tell me the truth. And it's only been recently that I've discovered that me leaving my grandparents' home and going to live with my mother and stepfather pretty much completed the story for them. Like, the child had been returned to its mother and all is well with the world. And that's how my family has treated the story. But what was omitted and what still has yet to be acknowledged is the effect that lie, because that's essentially what it is, the effect that lie had on me. So I think it's time to shed light on that story, and just acknowledge similar stories that other people have gone through, and to heal it, because as the book title says, feelings buried alive never die. And when I'm working on clients, when they're coming thinking they're in physical pain, what they're actually in is unacknowledged emotional pain. And I have, let's just say I can relate to what they're going through.
So is your telling the story like a first step for you as far as the healing of this lifelong emotion that you've carried? I'm not gonna name it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a first step. It's it's an additional step, because once I realized that, I was actually experiencing physical pain and emotional pain and mental pain, attempting to, conform to this lie. I realized years ago that I needed to do something about it. So, whether that was the 2.5 years I spent in an outpatient psychotherapy program, or whether it's been the personal development programs I've been doing, some of which occurred over at Landmark Education, or whether it's been some of the holistic training I've done, wherein, some of the training requires you to actually do the work. So you're in the hot seat and you're sharing things about yourself you haven't shared before. You're moving energy that's been stagnant. I think all of it has been part of my healing, but me sharing this with all of you, it's just healing on another level. It's, it goes beyond me and my pain and how I've moved through it and how I'm in the process of overcoming it, to sharing it with other people, which I think is just, a step that's more advanced than me just focusing on myself trying to overcome the pain.
Because it is more common than in families, I think, than what we've even acknowledged in the past.
Yeah.
Like a few months ago, the young lady who's was told of the woman that raised her was not her mother, but had actually kidnapped her
Right.
from out of the hospital, and her response to that.
Yeah, you and I were talking about that briefly, and what I found most amazing about that is, the child had developed maternal feelings toward this woman who raised her, even though that woman was not her biological mother. And so when it was found out that the child had actually been abducted and the young lady was introduced to her biological family, the young lady was obviously torn, because even though she had been abducted, her allegiance, her alliance, her emotion, was for the woman who raised her. And evidently the woman did a decent job at raising the young lady, even though it wasn't her birth mother. So this young lady is now torn, because she's got feeling for this woman who's now been arrested for the abduction, and then she's got this relationship with the family she did not have an opportunity to grow up around. So it's kind of hard to remain neutral when your biological family feels some type of way about the woman who abducted you, but you actually love that woman because she's the woman who raised you, but you don't want to, she doesn't want to feel like she's not loyal to the people, the family she was born into. So it's, I'll just say that that too is complicated. It's complicated.
Would you say that's similar to some of the things that you were feeling as a younger child? Like your grandmother was your mother.
Right.
And now, like, no, she's not your mother.
Right. Yeah, it was, I'd say very similar. You know, I wasn't illegally abducted, but I think, you know, socially and emotionally and mentally, I was. Because, you know, women have been having children since the beginning of time. So how the act of giving birth can be turned into this, I don't even know what to call it. This, it's just drama. It's just drama. So, yes, to answer your question, I did believe, and in a lot of ways still do feel, that my grandmother was my mother. Because she was the one who bathed me and fed me and clothed me and helped me with my homework, and it was her household, her and my grandfather's household that I was raised in, with my sister, aunts, and uncle, brother. My mother was on her own. You know, she, from what I understand, she was in the house when I was little, but at some point she moved out on her own. So she was kind of like that sister that I rarely saw. So my nuclear family was, I'll use the actual terms, my grandparents, my aunts, and my uncle. So, you know, those were the folks that I was around. And having been told that they were not actually, you know, who they said they were, left me feeling really lost. You know, lost, betrayed, confused, and even though I'm older now, obviously, and I know the truth, when my grandmother died, for all I know, you know, the way I felt, my mother had passed. When my grandfather died, my father died. And it's not the story that they concocted that disturbs me today, because, you know, I kind of get it. My mother was, like I said, she wasn't married, that wasn't socially acceptable, blah blah blah. You know, I don't know if my grandparents made up the story because of the, you know, the fact that it was a sin to have a child out of wedlock, or if they held some sort of social status and they did not want to be looked down upon because one of their children who was unwed had a child. You know, I don't really know what the reason is, and given that my grandparents are no longer living, I don't know that I'll ever get the truth. But what gets me to this day is I'm expected to have maternal feelings toward my mother. And I am constantly reminded by that side of the family that I should have these feelings. And I'm like, what don't you people get? So recently, a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with my uncle. My uncle had called and told me that my mother was in town. They're all in Philadelphia, so she had flown from where she is to Philadelphia to visit her siblings. And then my uncle texted me a picture of himself, my mom, and my aunt. And, you know, I got the picture, I looked at it, and I'm like, okay. And I kept moving, went on about my day. And that was on like a Tuesday. And so on Friday, my uncle called me. And he's like, hey, did you get the picture I sent? And I'm like, yeah. And the phone was quiet for a bit. And then he said, well, you know she's your mother. She did give birth to you. And I'm looking at my phone like, really? So, because I did not have a response or reaction to him sending me the photo, the next thing out of his mouth is that. And so, I just had to tell him, I'm like, your mother was my mother, and your father was my father. So when they passed away, I was as hurt and as inconsolable as you all were. So if you all were going to tell me that she was my mother, you should have done it then. Trying to force it down my throat and have me behave the way you need me to behave in order for you all to feel better about the lie you all conspired, you all agreed to participate in. I'm not going to do it. So, that's not to say that I don't care about my mother. That's not to say that I don't respect my mother. It's just that I don't have the feelings for her that I had for my grandmother. And I'm not going to allow anybody to force me to feel a way that I don't feel. And so because I don't feel that way, I am, have pretty much been ostracized from the family, which is an unfortunate circumstance because I do love them and care about them. But not enough to sacrifice how I feel to make them comfortable. So I share that because I know that there are other people who've been born under or raised under similar circumstances. And, if there are any parents out there who are watching this, who are considering misleading your children about who their parents are, please don't do it. Just don't do it, because it creates so much unnecessary anxiety and confusion and a lack of trust, and it's just life is hard enough than to have to go through life wondering who you are and who you're going to be and whose you are, and it's just a lot.
You brought up the lack of trust, and that's what I was thinking of when I was listening to the story, because the parents are the first examples that a child look up to for truth.
Right.
And when that doesn't exist, or when it becomes a lie, how did that impact you for the rest of your life and the relationships that you have with other people?
As you can imagine, I have trust issues. Very leery of people. I'm very what comes to mind is guarded. Very guarded about who I'm around, who's around me. And actually that's really just been within the past, I'd say 3 years or so. Like, I'm aware of the fact that I have trust issues now, but before I was really aware that I had trust issues, the people I was attracting was pretty much like the people I was brought up around. So I would attract situations where I wasn't of primary concern in that relationship, or my health and well-being wasn't important, or my feelings weren't important, or whatever they had going on was more important than what I had going on. And I really can't blame them, because that's what I was accustomed to, and those are the relationships that I put myself in. I also found that what I wound up doing was attempting to overcompensate or take on near impossible tasks, because I had to prove my worth. I had to validate my existence. In order to do that, I had to do something great. And that's exhausting. And the last time I did that, it wasn't good. It wasn't good for me at all. So I've learned from that. But back to the original question, I'm very guarded, very particular about who I'm around. My core group of people they know who they are. You all know who you are. And, those are the folks who, they know my weaknesses, but they never hold that against me or, attempt to manipulate me because they know what my weaknesses are. My core people, they build me up. So, some positive things have come, out of this story that was concocted. Because I have very little trust or faith in people, what I had to do in order to maintain my sanity, I think, was just to go on a quest for, God and what I believe. I've had to reevaluate my core values because, not that children consciously know what they value, but when you have the rug pulled out from under you and you think you're this person, but then come to find out you're actually that person, it's like you have to reevaluate your own truth. You have to figure out whether you really like what you thought you liked. You have to determine whether what you thought was important is actually important to you. Is it important to you, or was it important to your family? Or in my case, was it important to me, or was it important to my grandmother? Or was it important to my grandfather? Or was it something that my aunts liked that I just identified with? And I spent a long time trying to figure out who I am. And that's not to say that the search is over. I just now have a better basis for making those choices, and I get to say, I get to say what's true for me. I get to say what I believe in. And for me right now, it's just about moving forward.
I appreciate you sharing your story, and it's not uncommon, like I said earlier, because it does happen for whatever reason.
Yeah.
That the adults feel is the best thing to do. They just haven't taken into consideration the impact that it has on the child.
Sure.
So these childhood lives get to affect a person well into their years. So in closing, Marla, what would be your message to the worldwide audience in relationship to your history?
Well, as I said earlier, if you are a parent who has misled your child about who their parents are, I encourage you to go clean up that story and just be real about it. Just tell the truth. Look at it as a healing opportunity for yourself and the child, because in many cases the children aren't considered. The children's well-being isn't considered when those types of decisions are made. And if you happen to be the child, a child who was misled, my heart just goes out to you, and I encourage you to do whatever research that needs to be done to figure out who you are. If you don't know where to start, if nobody in your family is talking, if they're being tight-lipped, then there's still ways of figuring it out, because somebody knows. Somebody knows. And sometimes it may involve public records. Sometimes it may involve going back to the neighborhood where you were raised and asking neighbors, because not everybody leaves the neighborhood. So somebody in the neighborhood may know, have some information on your family. If for some reason you feel like you need some support, some emotional support, some mental support, I say go get that. For some reason there's this belief in the black community that black folk don't need therapy, but I think many of us do. So if it's therapy you need, I encourage you to go get that. If you need to reevaluate your religious background or your spiritual upbringing, if you need to make some changes there and actually find a path that resonates more with you and what you believe, I recommend that you go do that. Anything that's going to help you feel better about who you are and to move forward in a positive and healthy and enlightened way, then that would be my advice.
Thank you, daughter.
Yeah. Thank you, Mama.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
My name is Tony Malone. I am the proprietor of Paper Plane Yoga Studio here in College Park, historic College Park in Atlanta. I also have the Atlanta Multisport Magazine, which is a magazine for triathletes, runners. It's a health and wellness magazine. This studio is also an art gallery, so I also broker art in Atlanta. We have various art shows here, so I do a multitude of different things here at the studio and outside of the studio as well. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Tell us about your journey. How did you get here?
I used to be an executive in human resources. I did that for some 30 years. And, I would say for the first part of my career up until my 40s, I lived a quite healthy lifestyle. And then in my 40s, travel, life, I really got out of health and wellness. I wasn't very active. Lived a life which was, consumed by just eating whatever I wanted to eat, drinking, so on and so forth, and gained a lot of weight. I think I ballooned up to a little over 250, 280 pounds. And wife always had gym memberships and always wanted me to go to the gym, and just was not interested. Even though I was very active as in my 20s and even in my 30s, just did not seem to be motivated to go to the gym in my 40s. And fast forward, I started to go to the gym. Didn't necessarily have health issues, but was borderline hypertension. And the doctor just said, hey, listen, all you have to do is just stop some of the things that you were doing and do a little bit of exercise and eat better, and it would prevent you from, going into that next phase of your life where you're going to be unhealthy. So I still didn't listen until I got a phone call one day from my brother, and my brother shared with me that he had, that he had some visions about me not living a healthy life. and challenged me. Just say, hey, listen, you can do whatever you wanted to do. You have the gift of gab. You can, you've always been able to mobilize people and get people excited about whatever you were doing. And you could run for mayor, you could run for whatever. But if you continue to do the things you were doing, you're probably going to live a very short life. And at that time, I stopped doing a lot of the things that I was doing. I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking cigarettes, which I actually started smoking cigarettes at the age of 30. I wouldn't even smoke a cigarette. So, but that's another Jerry Springer show. So I stopped doing a lot of those things, started going to the gym, and the rest is really history. I started picking up running, and then started picking up triathloning. My first marathon, 26.2 miles nonstop, was in Madrid. And I just, went to Madrid, did the marathon there, did Paris Marathon, did Philly Marathon, did Chicago Marathon, I wanted to do a marathon every month. And that was, was unrealistic given my schedule, but I came damn near close to it. And, after the marathons abroad as well as marathons here, I also did New York Marathon, which, thinking back now, when I was living back north, never thought that I would do a New York Marathon. I thought people that ran marathons were crazy. I mean, I often loved the way runners looked. I mean, I loved their body type and way they looked, but never thought that I would run a New York Marathon until I did. And so I think running the 5 boroughs of New York really also just put another layer of the things that you can do. And it's just amazing when you set your mind to it, and you have that belief in the universe, in God, that you can do anything, that those things can come to fruition. And so that's what really propelled me into this journey of helping people with their health and wellness. I was let go off of my corporate job that I had for about 11 years, and they gave me a 2-year severance. So I had 2 years to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And every time I would go to places, whether it be Starbucks or whatever, I would see the same people come in and out of the Starbucks, and I would be there either reading a book or whatever, and I would be dressed in my running apparel. People would ask me, what do you do? Because we see you here every day. I mean, did you hit the lottery or something? I mean, how do you make an earning? And when I told them my story, they said, wow, 2 years severance? Wow, I only wish that. And I would ask them, what did they do? And I would probably say about 80% of the people that walked in there were unhappy about what they did. They would go to work every day. They would come in and out of these places, whether it be the cafe on the corner or Starbucks. And I started changing my question. I wouldn't ask them what they did. I would ask them, what's your passion? As soon as you say ask them what their passion was, I got a smile that came on their face. That was much different than, what you did for a living. Because most of them would say, I'm doing this. And I said, well, what the passion versus the job? And I'm like, well, I got that car out there, I got that Mercedes, I got a big house, I got kids, and so, but when they said when they shared with me what their passion was, it was a different dynamic, and I fed on that dynamic and said, do I want to go back to corporate, or do I really want to do something that means that's going to take me to that next stage in my life? I want to help people. I saw that we had, it was an epidemic, it still is an epidemic in our country with people that they eat poorly. We can control our health and wellness if we only adhere to doing the things that we should be doing with our health and wellness. And eating better, exercising, sleeping, reducing stress, and some other things that we can do. And that being said, I started to go back and get certifications in health and wellness. I got running coach certification. I became certified as a yoga instructor. And I started to, with this new role, I started to really embrace not only what I was doing, but listening to other people's stories that were quite similar to my story. And, you know, those stories were people who wanted to do some things different, but maybe not knowing how to. But also, I met a lot of awesome people, amazing people that did change their story. They started in one venue where they were not eating healthy and not doing healthy things to going into living a healthier lifestyle. So I know I said a lot. You asked me one question, I kind of extrapolated on that question, but you know, for the most part, that's pretty much what I do and some of the things that led me to this journey that I'm on now.
Well, excellent answers. In the instance with your brother helping you or making the initial suggestion to you that perhaps a different way of life would benefit you more, and, you know, because there's been research and the diseases that we experience here in the United States are called diseases of affluence, because the corporate lifestyle that you were talking about have a tendency to lead to the overeating, the rich diet in meats and things like that, and the sedentary life, you know, where you're not really moving because you're from one corporate event to another. So that was really a beautiful gift that your brother gave you, to bring your mind to that awareness.
I agree, but the underlining thing was, it wasn't actually my brother. It was actually my wife. My wife really was fed up with my lifestyle, and she appealed to my brother to have my brother talk to me. And I only found this out years later. And so that makes, I mean, my wife is very special regardless. I mean, but she was at her rope's end when we appealed to my brother to help. And so my brother was the voice, but my wife was the person that was behind it. So I give her all the praise in the world, because she really was the one that changed my life. And like I said, she's so, how would I say it? I mean, she was, only years later did I find that out. And so she's such a big person, you know, such a noble person, such a humble person, that she just wanted me to change.
Yes.
And not realizing how my selfishness impacted her life and my family's life. And that was a big part of, now, you know, reflecting back on that. And so, you know, changing my life, involving her in, you know, my running, and, you know, I would take these trips and bring, you know, her on the trips, and my family. My son started to run and do marathons with me as well. And, you know, I learned a lot. You know, I learned a lot from that whole experience. And when a person really cares about you, and enough to say, look, I mean, I don't want, you know, I want to leave you, but this has got to a point where, you know, our relationship, nothing's going to change. And I remember telling my wife I would never stop doing certain things, only to see where I'm at now. And, you know, who would even fathom that I would be doing some of the things that I'm doing now? So I give her all praises to her and God. And my brother, absolutely, but yeah.
And you look younger every time I see you.
Well, scream, but thank you. I'll take the compliment.
Yes. And so that's why it's important in this webinar that we include men such as yourself, because a lot of times we don't see ourselves when we have the discussion around health and wellness. It's women, or it's people of other ethnic backgrounds. And so for you to be here and to be able to share the story, your wife was wise enough to know the avenue that she needed to take, and she had enough love where it wasn't selfish. She was more interested in your well-being than anything else, and so I applaud her on that. And so, but the same type of compassion is with this, in that we can reach our men to tell them that health and being well is a sexy. It's the new sexy.
I agree. It's also more than that too. There's a lot of misnomers about what I do, whether it's yoga, running, and there's also, I mean, look at our history. I mean, a lot of times people don't realize that we are, in a lot of ways, as people, we have issues. We're broken because of the things in the past, whether it be slavery or whatever. And so we don't trust doctors for good reason. You know, we've been experimented on. We're still being experimented on, even with our food supply now. And so there are a lot of things that make people not do what they're supposed to do with respect to their food. We don't educate ourselves on the food. So many people pick something up on the shelf, from the shelf, and they don't even read what what the contents or ingredients are. A lot of it is tribal knowledge. We eat what our parents ate, what our parents' parents ate. And so there are things that we still have hang-ups on certain things, meat that we're supposed to get, and that's how we get our protein and all this other stuff, which is a fallacy. When you look at a 300-pound gorilla and they're a freaking vegetarian versus, so there are just a lot of things that we have been mistold, misfed, mislabeled, or whatever the case may be. So getting over that alone, it takes someone like yourself, it takes someone like the people I'm sure you'll be interviewing and say, hey, listen, guys, read. I mean, I'm living proof that, the things that I used to do, I don't do anymore because I started to really care about how I felt and care about what I was putting in my body. And that may sound like a coined phrase, that your body is a temple and all of that stuff, but you really need to, there's so many stories out there with respect to people finding themselves again. I don't know about you, but I'm the type of person where I wanted to age in place where I felt better as I went into an older age, that I still was able to enjoy my children. I have now, both my sons are adults. I have a 30-year-old and a 29-year-old, but I've ran with them. That you can do it, it's just that you have to commit, you have to educate yourself, and really step outside the box, and I know that's a coined phrase, but really do things differently that really will bring about change and not continue to do the same thing that will bring about the results that you currently have now, which is the disease and the discomfort, the weight gain, the mental fog, and I can go on and on and on. They're building more drugstores nowadays than they are gyms, and so what you find nowadays is more jails, more drugstores, more unhealthy people, and big pharma getting bigger, and the people in our government, they don't care, because the lobbyists are filling their pockets with money, and if you want to eat poor, fine, because you want to eat poor, then you get on drugs, and you get on drugs, and you continue this vicious cycle. So my goal is to really help break that cycle. So anyone that not only comes through the doors, but even if I go out and do seminars and so on and so forth, my goal is to really bring about, change and really educate people about what they're doing in their life. Because I'm proof that you can certainly change the way you live and to bring about a better lifestyle for yourself and for your family as well. Also gives you peace of mind. When I walk into a doctor's office now, before it was, you're borderline hypertension and this, I walk into the doctor's office now, my doctor is saying to me, I gotta get in shape like you. And it's good to know when I walk out of the doctor's office, the two things they want to offer me is a flu shot, which I don't take, or they say, do you need any Viagra, which I don't need. And those are the only things they give me, because everything else, it's like you're not on any medication. So can you imagine, I used to walk in the doctor's office with that question mark saying, okay, how is this going to end? Because you never know if they're going to say, oh, your blood pressure's to the point that we now have to put you on medication. It's a choice, whatever you want to do. And some people say, hey, listen, I'd rather get the medication and not get on a treadmill or whatever. That's my life. And you know what? If that's for you, continue to take your medication. Eventually, we're all going to die, but it's like how you feel.
Exactly.
Are you going to have kidney issues and having to go through dialysis? Because the medicine will eventually kill you. There's side effects. Take this and, it's for sinuses, but this is going to happen and this and this and this. Take this for blood pressure, but eventually your kidneys and all of the other stuff is going to. So, to me, the choice is pretty clear. You gotta make sure that your diet is correct. So I became a vegan, not because it was the thing to do, but I'm doing it not only because, what we're putting in our bodies is not the same meat that my parents grew up on. It's so full of chemicals and literally meat products nowadays are giving people cancer. People don't realize it. It's giving our community hypertension. They think it's the sugar and all this other stuff. It's the meat. Just look at some of the studies that are being put out. Harvard medical studies. A lot of these studies to say, listen, guys, we cook the meat on the grill. It's carcinogenic. We're getting it, and colon cancer. All of these things. And so that's another Jerry Springer show. Put that on the side. The bottom line
that's an
is
excellent point.
Go ahead. The bottom line is, if you could be a runner, and I appeal to my runners, my triathletes, but if you're still drinking the dark liquor, you're still eating the meat, you're still living these lifestyles where you're not getting your rest and all of that stuff, and you're not recovering, guess what? You're still gonna have these issues because you're dealing with inflammation. If you don't have the mental, you don't have the spiritual, and your eating is not done, you're gonna have issues. You're gonna have injuries. You're gonna have blockages, whatever the case may be. So you got to get them all together. And that, for me, that's the key. That's the one thing that I think a lot of my colleagues still have not, tapped into. They're doing all of the good stuff. We're posting all of the pictures of all of the runs that we're doing. And all that's great. But then you feel like crap afterwards, because it doesn't come together. And I have people that come to me and say, I'm still missing something. I'm doing all of these runs, but I'm still missing. There's something I'm missing. Yeah, you don't have the mental, you don't have the spiritual down. And you have to have all of you got the physical, but you don't have the other stuff. In one word, eat green. In one word, just eat green. When you look at your plate, if you have more starch and more meat on your plate than you have green, then that's a problem. Every study that comes out will tell you to eat green. I don't know what else you can say about just eating green. Drinking water. So there's also other reasons why I don't eat meat. And one of the reasons, because people don't realize that, meat or animals have feelings. And people don't realize that you're eating pain. You're eating grief. You're eating anxiety. And there's a lot of people that's walking out here and they got anxiety. They got grief. And they don't understand, why do I feel so depressed? Why do I this and that? We don't eat the same, and I say this, we don't eat the same meat that our parents did. Before, we didn't kill as many mass produced and kill as many animals as we do. Even when you look at indigenous people, they ask that thing that they're getting ready to kill permission. There's a ritual with it before they even kill. We don't do that. We kill with no compassion.
Thank you for being with us today. And we know that you enjoyed our awesome, incredible speakers. And we certainly appreciate you as being a part of this groundbreaking historic event. And so we invite you to tomorrow perhaps invite a couple more of your friends over, or how about at your church or your synagogue or your mosque, invite people and have a viewing party so that you can have a discussion afterwards. And so we look forward to being with you tomorrow with another group, anywhere from 5 to 7 incredible individuals that's going to share of their expertise, their love, their passion, because our speakers cover a wide variety of subjects, and it's things that you can immediately put into effect in your life. So thank you for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Right.